Hi everybody, welcome back to part 6 of my junk journal series, my Christmas junk journal series for this year. Today is going to be a bit of a quicker video because I'm just going to cover one subject and I'm just going to talk about the date stickers. This year I decided to design them myself. I don't know if anybody saw my series last year, but I tried to make my own stickers last year and I didn't do a very good job. So I was determined this year to spend more time over it, I suppose, and make more of an effort. And I've always wanted to make date sticker sheets, printable date sticker sheets, because I love drawing, obviously, and I love drawing little things. And I thought it was a really good challenge, actually, to sit down and try and think of 24, 25, 24? I think I did 24 in the end. Little drawings that are Christmassy enough to go into this junk journal. So that's what I did. And I sort of sketched out a few ideas and then I finished them off on my computer. And these date sticker sheets are actually at my Etsy shop. So if you want to go and have a look at my Etsy shop, you can see the final product, as it were. Obviously, I'll show you now. So I sat down with my son on Saturday. We'd just finished lunch, I think, and I just grabbed some paper next to me and I started doodling some ideas. And I wanted to kind of stick to my Christmas kind of bakeware, crockery, drinkware theme. So I drew out a lot of circles and just started putting some ideas down. And my son came over and he said he wanted to know what I was doing. So I let him have a go and he came up with some brilliant ideas. And he actually drew 3 for me. So the 3 there are the ones that he drew out with his ideas and they've actually been used. So I thought that was kind of cute. So these are the tools I've been using. So first up we have a Tombow monograph mechanical pencil, which is my favourite. A Pilot Kakuno fountain pen, which actually has a refillable cartridge in that one, so I can choose my own inks. The Pilot Iroshizuku ink colour in Tsutsuji. And then the paper I'm using is a torn up MD notebook, A6 plain paper, because I just like how it feels. And that is ink under my fingernail, by the way. It looks really disgusting, but it's definitely ink because I was drawing all day this day. So I'd made a template and I'd drawn it out a little larger than the final size. I worked out how many I wanted to fit on a sheet of A4 and then sort of worked out what the final size was. And then I made it a little bit bigger because I like when I'm drawing things and scanning them in onto the computer to be able to sort of shrink them just slightly. Because obviously it's easier to draw larger and then shrink down than try to draw too tiny. So my template is 6 centimetres by 4.5. And then later on, I shrink it a little to 4 by 3 centimetres. So I just draw the outline first in pencil. Check my reference sheet, and I'm working on number 5. And then I just rough it out basically with the pencil. And I've got to be careful when I'm drawing these. I need to leave a space because I know I'm going to put a number on there. So I can't, fill the whole thing with drawing and then there's no space to put a number. So whenever I do these, when I was doing these, I had to sort of think to myself where that number's going to go. So on this one, I think the number goes on the big plant pot because there's lots of space there on the front. So once I kind of got a rough idea of where I want things with the pencil, I just launch straight in with the pen really and just have a go and see what happens. This is actually one of my least favourite ones, I have to say, but it's the one I filmed. And it is very satisfying drawing all those little leafy evergreens in the pot. So like I said before, I did have a little trouble with the ink smudging on these, but I managed to edit a lot of the ink smudging out once it was on my computer, just sort of tidied the images up a little bit. But it's just so nice to draw with. It feels so lovely on the paper that I still wanted to use it even though I knew it was definitely going to smudge. And that's it, job done. So this is what they all look like when I finished drawing them all out. And then the next step is to get them onto my computer. So I just scan them in onto my computer directly like that. And I missed a bit of footage out here, so you didn't see me using the original scans and then colouring them in. But this is what I came up with after, a while of messing around and neatening them up and sort of making them crisper. And I added a few bits of colour in to see what I felt like see what was working. And at this point I was a bit like unsure. I really like the red and the white, the really simple red and white. But I printed some out as well just to kind of play with, and I tried like colouring them with a bit of pencil to see how I felt with different colours on. And I was like, oh, I don't know, I don't really like that either. But as you saw in the previous video, I actually used those in my junk journal, so it's fine. But yeah, at this point I'm liking that red colour. But obviously, as usual, I just carry on faffing around until I end up with tons of different colours on there. Now, in Photoshop's the program I'm using, you work in layers, and you can look at each layer like individually. So this is me showing you the individual colour layers. Because if you put all your colours on separate layers, so I've labelled them green, brown, blue, you can actually change the tone of that colour separately to the other ones, sort of fiddle around with that one colour. So if you look at it and you think, oh, I want the red to be brighter or darker or more pink, you can just select the red layer and like fiddle around with the settings to change the colour. And I quite like the effect without the actual line drawing on at this point. Thought that was quite nice. Something else to experiment with another time. But that's there with the line drawing popped back on the top. I'm sorry about the video not really picking it up very well, but it's quite hard to film a computer screen. So this is maybe after like a couple of hours of fiddling around. I've got sort of a blue and a red and a yellow tone in and a brown. And I start to play around with the hue and the saturation. So if you choose the hue saturation settings, you can slide these little sliders up and down, and it gives you different tones. And so this is me doing now the saturation, which just makes them, the colours a lot more. I think I'm just working on the brown layer at this point, so you can see it's only the brown layer that changes, but you can change the hue to completely change the colour if you want. So I'm just trying to, I ended up with 4 different colourways because I couldn't honestly decide which one I liked the most. I find the colour so hard, honestly, because I feel like I just don't quite get them right each time, and I spent hours and hours fiddling around trying to change the tones. I mean, you can see there that for me that green is much too sort of saturated and bright compared to the other tones, so it doesn't stay like that. But I'm just sort of like fiddly faffing around for ages to try and get it how I want, really. And then I also add in some texture. So another thing you can do in Photoshop is add in a layer of texture. And I used my bits from my sketchbook, some sort of patterns I'd drawn out, and I put them over each colour. So say I put the one texture layer over the blue layer, and then if you do something called a clipping mask, you can actually make sure that it only covers the colour and not all over the page, if you see what I mean. And then next I scanned in some numbers that I'd drawn. These are all hand-drawn numbers by me, so that's my actual drawing. And I just cut them up and start dropping them into the spaces that I'd left, basically. And I try and vary where the numbers go. So some of them at the top left, some of them are in the middle, some of them bottom right. I haven't done them all in the same place each time, basically. So at this point, all the numbers themselves are also on different layers, so I can select the layer and move it to where I want it to be. Photoshop, I'd love to be really good at using Illustrator, but because I've used Photoshop for so many years now, I'm sort of nervous to try anything new. But I do really love the way you can do this layer thing. And if you think of it in terms of physical layers, one on top of the other, it's actually really sort of, how do I say, not easy to use, but it makes sense in your head. If you think of things physically in terms of layers, basically, it's very easy to work out what needs to go where. And obviously the thing on the top shows up the most, for example. And you can make different parts of your layer sort of see-through or not like non-existent, so you can see down to the layers below. Okay, so here you can see I'm sort of just flicking through my different colorways, and I quite like using the monotone one, just black and white, and I actually later changed the numbers to a color on that one. I did a sort of a pinkier tone, and then there's more classic red, and I think I did a sepia, like a brownie one as well. So then the next step was to drop them into a template I'd made that to fit all onto one sheet neatly, like all onto one A4 sheet neatly. So I just copied each number through, and I'm just sort of making sure they're straight and fitting them into the little template ready to print. So this is what I ended up with, monochrome with red numbers, and then I did a sepia in case you want something not quite so bright, I suppose. And then I did traditional sort of red and blue and green, quite primary, and then a sort of a pinkier one. And I did make those pinks pop a bit more than at this point. I did actually bring that pink up more pinky. And then I printed them. And this is what they look like. And I haven't decided which one I'm going to use. I think I'm probably just going to end up using all of them whenever I feel like it, whichever ones I feel like, basically. So that's the monochrome with red. That's the pink toned, the red toned, and then the sepia. I think my favourite one is the teapot, number 16. I think that's really cute. And the gingerbread one, number 8. I quite like that one. But I only went up to 24 because I don't think I would have been capable of doing all the way up to 31 for the full. And I've just realised that I don't actually have 25. So 25 is going to have to be something completely different, basically. So these are just the numbers for the Advent, like you get on an Advent calendar, I suppose. 1 to 24 is all you'd have on an Advent calendar, and then 25 is obviously the big day. So I'll have to think of a fancy number for 25. And while I was there, I actually thought, well, perhaps if I do up to 31, that will cover the whole month in case anybody wants to use them, or I probably want to use them as well. So I just did a simple green wreath with pen and ink and then put my numbers in. And then I had this other wreath that I'd drawn out with the same ink pen actually. And I quite like that. So then I thought, oh, I'll make a different one in case I want to do something different. I might use the one that goes up to 31 for November because I did start quite a lot of Christmas prep in November. So I might use those numbers to cover the November days, perhaps. So this is what they look like when they're cut out. I didn't cut them all out at this point. I just cut out the first like 3 or 4 just to see how they look on the page. And as I thought, the square ones were a lot easier to cut out. And I've gone around the corners with my corner rounder punch as well on there. So I think what I'll do is I'll just, when I come to do the day, I'll just have a look through and decide which one I want to use for that day and which one sort of fits on the page, basically. You can see on that number 1 that the pink and at this point the pink and the red are not that they're not that different basically, but I do change the pink tones to pop more basically. So here we've got I sort of stuck this extra big pocket in at the back, and I can put my date sticker sheets. I mean, they're not stickers because I just printed them on plain paper, but my date sheets I can put in the back pocket there. I thought about putting them in this clear pocket on like in the front, but I'm not sure that's going to work because they're a bit fiddly to get out, and I don't want to tear that paper. And And in the end, I actually put them in a tin and popped the tin in my big white sort of like storage folder. So I'm just having a play around now to see what they look like on the page. So yeah, some of them look nicer. The plainer ones look nicer on the plainer pages, obviously. It just depends on the tones on the page, really. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. It was a short one, but hopefully it was a little bit interesting for you. And my next video is going to basically be like the final flip through, how everything is just before I actually start using it. So I hope you can join me for that video as well. And thank you very much for watching, as usual. Bye bye.